My guest today on the Essential Coaching Skills podcast is my good friend Ulf Sandstrom. Ulf is a humanitarian working in the Peaceful Heart Network using tapping and havening to relieve trauma in post-conflict areas like Rwanda, Congo, and other vulnerable populations. He's my good friend. He's a colleague hypnotist. He's an NLPer. He's a musician, and I'm thrilled to have him here. Ulf Sandstrom will be with us in just a moment talking about clean language, which is an essential coaching skill.
You are listening to the Essential Coaching Skills podcast, a show devoted to uncovering the systems and the secrets that set the best apart, where you learn how to take your coaching clients to the next level, while you grow the coaching practice of your dreams. So sit back and relax, or sit up and get excited. Either way, you might want to pay attention. This could be important.
Ulf!
Doug!
Nice to see you, my friend. You are joining us from your home in Stockholm, is that correct?
That's correct.
But you are a world traveler. And I was reading through your website the other day. You are Swedish living in Sweden, but you weren't born there, were you?
Swedish parents, born in Colombia, Bogota, close to the jungle, and traveling through at least 7 countries, going to 11 schools, coming to Sweden when I was 12. So I'm kind of a mixed mongrel.
So you didn't set foot in your own country until you were 12 years old?
I did set foot during the summers. We would go here on vacation and kind of be in touch with grandparents and stuff like that. But the rest of the time was spent outside.
Wow, cool. And that's why you speak 6 languages fluently?
Yeah, well, at least the first 4 are fluent. Then there's a little mix and batch and rehash of different stuff.
That's very impressive. You know, when I first came to Sweden, I did a talk at a thing, and I made a joke that people appreciated. That was, I said, I'm very impressed with you Swedes, because this introduction was just in Swedish, and now I'm speaking to you in English, and nobody left the room. You're all understanding me. So you're all at least bilingual. How many people here are trilingual? And a lot of people raise their hands. I said, how many people are like multilingual? More than 3, like everybody. Said, that's awesome. You know what we call people who speak just one language? An American.
Well, you could call them a Frenchman, an Italian, a Portuguese, a German. I mean, any country where they don't watch American movies.
Never explain a joke.
Or a metaphor. And never let facts get in the way of a good story.
That's the spirit. That's the guy I wanted on my podcast. Thanks,
there you go. Yeah.
So,
all right.
So you are many, many, many things. You are an excellent musician. You are a recording artist. You are so many things. You're an inventor. I mean, Jesus, Toledo.
I'm a Kinder egg. I'm the human Kinder egg.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, I could have you on here for any of those purposes, and it would be fascinating because you're just totally fascinating. And I'm asking here today because of clean language, which is something I am familiar with. I met the woman that you learned it from, Judy Reese, many years ago. I was introduced to it a long time ago. I didn't personally feel like I needed to learn it because I just think that way. When I do, part of the reasons I started this podcast, this Essential Coaching Skills podcast, is I thought NLP has the meta model. NLP has this way of thinking. At least my training in NLP brought me to a way of thinking that I want to find out in a clean manner what they're saying without imposing any of me on them. So even other than conscious communication, I attempt to keep clean, so that when I elicit information, both verbal and nonverbal, from my clients, I'm getting what they're putting out rather than what they're responding to from me, in other words. So I thought it was just like, well, okay, good. You keep going with that. That's good. But I didn't particularly need it. You are an immense advocate for it. And because of that, I think I need to rethink this thing. I want to know more.
You need to rethink it a lot.
Okay, it's good.
Your night is set out for you, and the next days and the weeks.
Okay. So, Ulf Sandstrom, tell me why. Tell me more about clean language.
Well, here's the deal. Clean language. Clean language is a set of formulaic questions not defined by David Grove, who is a hypnotist and NLPer colleague to us. Bless his soul. He spent 25 years working with severely traumatized people and wanted to find a way to safely and in a trauma-informed way elicit what they needed to find in themselves. As we say in NLP, you have all the resources you need. You just need to find them. And in Rwanda, where I worked a lot with the genocide survivors, there's this saying called ichirezi, which means you have a beautiful pearl or diamond within you, but sometimes you need somebody else to help you find it. And that's what coaching and therapy is. And so I looked at clean language. I took the course with Judy, bless her, she's great. And I didn't think much more of it. I thought, that's cool. It's a method. It's formulaic. And a lot of people are making fun of it, like other coaches, they're having these joke videos with, what kind of X is that X? And, it's like, yeah, of course, it's not a recipe. But then I found the book. And for those of you who are checking this on YouTube, on Doug's YouTube channel, please subscribe if you like it. To the world, you will see the book I'm holding up. I can tell it for you, those of you who are auditive. Trust Me, I'm the Patient, by Philip Harland. You see, David Grove didn't design clean language. He did it very much in the same way that Bandler didn't design sleight of mouth. He did it, and somebody else modeled him. And correct me if I'm wrong, Doug. You know that better than me. But in either case, the observations of what that is in the book, Trust Me, I'm the Patient, went beyond the actual questions. And this was years after the training. And I had been working in so many countries with severely traumatized populations, victims of gender-based violence, of war, torture victims, refugees, liberated child soldiers, you name it. And that's how I came in touch. From hypnosis and NLP, I landed, and this is before I met you, I landed from hypnosis and NLP in tapping, because I wanted to find something that could allow me to work with trauma without speaking. Because speaking only works when you know their language. And so I met Gunilla Hamne, my colleague in the Peaceful Heart Network, which is a nonprofit since 15 years. And she was working with severely traumatized populations in Rwanda, not talking, only lowering arousal with the nervous system, which is what tapping does. And there's a load of energy psychology methods that can lower arousal. Tapping, the way she did it, under the mentorship of Dr. Carl Johnson, who had worked with survivors of the sexual abuse in the Kosovo War and published the first study in the Clinical Journal of Psychology on tapping. He was her mentor, and then we worked together, her and I, to really define what is trauma tapping. Not tapping for coaching, to quit smoking, to lose weight. What is actual trauma tapping? So we developed the first aid method. And this meant...
Quickly. Hold that thought. Because I know you can't hold that thought. It was Gunilla who I first experienced tapping from in a way that made me go like, okay, this stuff is real.
You were really skeptic.
I was a skeptic. I was a big skeptic of tapping because I had tried it. I'd given it a go.
Yeah.
I had learned it from people, and I'd given it a legitimate effort to see if it worked, and it didn't work for me the way that I had learned it from other people. But then when I got to your place and you were so into it, I was like, really? Tapping? And this is around the time I think that I'd just been exposed to havening, and you guys had not really heard of that, although you knew Ron Rudin's book. So that I met with you and she in your living room, and she did tapping with me. I was like, oh my God, this is really good. This is amazing.
And that's when we asked you, you said, have you heard about havening? We said, well, we know about Rudin. And we thought he was like this 95-year-old professor who was almost dead and gone. You're going, no, he's great. He's a great guy. I can send him an email and introduce you. And thanks to you, he invited us to London for the next training conference in havening, which builds on the same. I mean, he was researching tapping to find out what is it that makes it work, because Paul McKenna showed him tapping. Right. And so we're all standing on the shoulders of chance, here. And lowering arousal, is how you can speak to the safety system of us. I have this new model. Can I show it to you?
Yeah. Let me.
Yeah, so this is what I build all my coaching on today, and it comes from experience. So it's validated by, I think I've had 4,000 clients. I was counting the other day, or plus. And so the way I see it, we have this triune system that we have to look at to understand what coaching is. And this will come to the reason why I had to look at clean for a second time, and why clean language is actually a subset of what I call clean communication.
Okay.
Which wouldn't exist without clean language, but which is so much more.
Excellent.
And so here we go.
So for our viewers at home, we're going to show some videos, some slides.
I'm just going to show you the model. It's really fast.
Okay, good.
So let's just say that we have this part of your consciousness,
all right,
which is your more or less brain, if that's true or not, and we don't know that for sure, but it's logic. So it's logic reasoning. It's abstract information, it's facts, it's narrative, it's the story of you, it's math, it's reciting language, being multilingual, it's in here, and words and symbols, everything that is abstract and logical. And then you have the safety system of the brain, which is on the other side. Now, this safety system, it only has 5 switches. It can go freeze, flight, fight, flop, and panic. And some say fawn, which is befriending your predator. And then you have the third system, which is basically the limbic system or mammal brain, in which you have your actual lived experiences. Now, this means every single, and this go to NLP and VACOG, every single thing you saw, felt, touched, experienced, smelled, whatever, is up there. That part is there when you're asleep. So when you sleep, that part can use everything you experienced and create a dream, but it doesn't have the part going, you cannot fly, So the part that said you cannot fly is not there, which means you can fly in your dream. And you have phones in your dream, so you can take a phone and you can try to hit the number. But the actual numbers are facts lodged in this part of the brain. So you will never be able to actually hit the number in your dream, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the part that is the survival brain, arousal can only be checked out with tapping or havening or TRE or eye movement or breathing or whatever is working with the arousal system. Otherwise, it's not going to work. The part of your brain which is has the lived experience is also your fast thinking, according to Joseph Kahneman, the Nobel laureate, which is pattern recognition. I've seen 100 apples. So this side goes, apple, what is apple? And this side goes, it could be green, it can be red, it can be a juice, it can be a cake. I hate it, I like it, it's sour, it's sweet, And so when these 3 agree that it's safe, then we can be playful in our social engagement mode and happy, and we can wag our tail and catch the ball and bring it back to whoever threw it. When these 3 do not agree, then the safety part or your mammal brain will send a message to the logical brain going, something is fishy in the state of Denmark. And that is an emotion. So the emotion is going to tell, I feel this anxiety. So one part is going to go, I think that's a stick. And this side goes, no, it's not. It's a snake. I don't care. Let's run. Okay. And this one just gets turned off. And this one goes, oh, I remember snakes. And this one goes, it's a bee, let's run. And this one goes, why? But you already ran. And then this side goes, but we were stung once. It was unpleasant. I didn't handle it. I got an anaphylactic shock. Don't you remember? Now I remember. And so this conversation goes on, and emotion and arousal are the signs of the dialogue. If we buy this hypothesis, and it's only a Mangus hypothesis, and I keep saying I am 1 out of 8 billion people, so don't believe me more than the rest. But if this is true, this is how I work. So I use hypnosis to get access to the subconscious pattern generalization system that runs emotions. I use NLP to look at what that does. I also use NLP to find out what it is the logical brain is doing and to find out what the survival brain wants. I use tapping and havening on the arousal. I use NLP to shift beliefs based on human experience, which is recorded in the mammal brain. And so I go by the NLP presupposition that every single emotion, every single behavior, and every single thought has a purpose, and it's specific. Don't give me generalized any thing because I don't believe it. And don't give me self-destructive personalities or behavior or addictive personalities. In my world, they don't exist. You have coping behaviors. They're there to make you survive, to avoid pain, or to gain pleasure. And if they are detrimental to you or anybody else, you or somebody else will label it a personality disorder and slap a medication on it, but that's wrong because you're killing the messenger. And this is where clean communication comes in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. So this is where clean communication comes in as opposed to clean language in the early days, the way that I was exposed to it or learned it. This is actually using it with this model that says we have to not just clean communication with others, but also with our inner parts here.
Exactly. And here's the deal. Clean language, when I finally understand the way I understand it, and there's probably 100 other ways, and they're probably all good, it's about surfing. And surfing is about when is there a wave I can surf on? And once you're surfing, you're not going, maybe I should practice swimming while I'm here at the sea. No, if you're surfing, the only thing you do is surf. You get out of the way of everything except the surfing. And in the same way, clean language or clean communication, where clean language is a definite part, you're waiting for the client to show some sign of miscommunication in their system, which is an emotion.
Okay.
Once you find the emotion, you get on the surfboard and you get out of the way and you just hold up mirrors and you make yourself invisible. And it's a trance state, it's a flow state, it's hypnosis. And you're not supposed to remind your client at any point or time that you are there, because then you are unclean. You are dirtying their whatever they have to find out within themselves.
Yeah. My teacher, Dave Dobson, referred to it as contaminating.
Exactly.
So what you said is that any sign of non-clean communication results in an emotion, and that's the signal that you found.
No. Any sign that there is an imbalance between the client's survival brain, logical brain, and emotional brain is an emotion that is trying to resolve something. Anxiety, I'm depressing, I'm anxiety, I'm worried, I'm fearful, I'm not able to handle crowds, I'm not able to not handle crowds, I need drugs.
I got it. Yeah.
And so as soon as you find their emotion,
yes,
you get out of the way, or you will contaminate the process you can unravel.
Right.
And this is where it becomes totally counterintuitive. Because if you learned NLP and coaching and therapy and psychoanalysis, CBT, whatever, you've learned that you come from above, getting a helicopter perspective, and you try to understand the client better than the client, and then you try to help them to find their way out of the maze that they have got stuck in, their toxic trance. This is the opposite.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Right?
Yeah, got it.
And so what you're doing now is you want them to understand. And I'll give you an example. If you say, for example, you say apple, to the logic brain, it understands the concept of apple, but it has no idea if it's green or red, or if you like it, or if you're allergic, or if it's a juice. It has to ask, right? So this part has to say, apple, what does it mean? And this part has to say, which one of all the apples we ever experienced is that? And that's when you have, what kind of X is that X? So you say, I have anxiety. So as an NLPer, you change it from having it, a nominalization, into doing it. So you're anxiety. And they might say, yes, well, I don't know what you mean. And when you anxiety, what kind of anxiety is that anxiety? So what you're doing is the precise grammar is designed to have them forget about you, not try to explain to you what it is, but to explain to themselves. Out of all the anxieties I ever ran into, which kind of anxiety is this one? Right?
Nice.
And so that's the first part of the actual thing. And so the second part is, okay, so it's the kind of anxiety that makes me uncomfortable. Okay. And everything is and when you're uncomfortable, where is that uncomfortable? And you use the words in their precise tense because you're holding up mirrors. Mirrors don't care if you have a nose that's beautiful or not, according to you or anybody else. So if the word is anxiety and the word is uncomfortable, you use the exact words. Yes. So for those of you watching the video, and if you're not, go watch it after and sign up for Doug's channel. Okay, so what kind of anxiety is that anxiety? All right. It's the kind that makes you uncomfortable. Okay. And this is just, you can use these questions in random order. I'm just showing you an example because it's easier to understand, experiential learning. So when you are uncomfortable, where is that? Come uncomfortable. And so now you're asking, do they relate to their body? Are they associated or dissociated? Do they understand their emotions? Can they put them in a place which could correlate to, if you believe in biology, it could correlate to the nervous system, where fear is usually more in the stomach because you have to empty it when you're fearful, or anxiety and fear for fight and flight would be more in the chest because you have more adrenaline, etc. And so they say, well, uncomfortable is kind of in my chest. Okay. And when it is there, now you're on the timeline. You're not saying right now, you're saying when it is there. Where there is it? Okay. The actual grammar has 1,000 hidden meanings, which if you're into hypnosis and NLP, you can start grasping and taking apart. But just trust me for now. When it is there, where there is it? This question is a deepener. So it's about them going deeper inside and assessing, if it's there, can I feel it, and where can I feel it? So they would go, well, it's kind of in the center of the chest, just where I think my heart is. Okay, and when it is in the center of your chest, just where your heart is, uncomfortable is like what? Now, this is asking them if they have a metaphor for it, and some don't. So they'll say, it's like that. And some will say, it's like a hand holding my heart. And when a hand is holding your heart, what do you think hand holding your heart would like to have happen next? This is asking in NLP for the positive intention. But we're only using their words in their tense. So what would uncomfortable, when it is there, right there in your heart, what would uncomfortable like to have happen next? And have happen next, the positive intent is, then you can go with a metaphor. You can go with a metaphor and say, what kind of hand? Is that hand? Is it hairy? Is it, or you could go with a positive intent and say, all right, so it would like for peace to happen next. Okay, well, what would peace, is there anything else about that peace? Now there's 12 questions in total. These are 5. Use them in any order you want. But before we go further, and before you ask me anything, I'd just like to show you the state model and how clean language relates to that. Okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the state model is something that I designed together with Frederick Presto, my hypno colleague, musician, building engineer that you know as well as me.
Very well.
Yep. And so the state model is the result of writing our book, Unpack Your Existence, in which we wrote 34 hypnotic trances and wrote down one chapter for each aspect of our clients, comparing sessions, and for each chapter, the techniques we would normally use from NLP, tapping, after action review, clean language, whatever. So it's 86 of those techniques. And you can have it all for free in the app. It's free. Just go download it. The state model, we said, could we make a map where we could put in any intervention, any psychological model, including medication, and understand what might be missing for this specific client? And this is the model, and so far it's worked, and it's 8 years now. So it's kind of building on the emotional triad that Tony Robbins uses a lot, and not only him, CBT and 1,000 other different, models. So first of all, you think something.
Ulf, could you, just for the benefit of the people who are not watching this as a podcast, could you explain what the illustration
exactly
is?
So I'm explaining a model, a map, and think of it as a triangle. See a triangle in your head as a pyramid with a point pointing upwards. Nice. And there you have the left side is thinking, cognition, the part that cognitive behavioral therapy will address. And the right side of it, connected to thinking, is your body, because your physiology is involved at all times. And the base of the pyramid is feeling, emotion, the communication between your mammal brain lived experience and your cognition. We as humans think, feel, and have a physiology, and we do things which are called behaviors. This is all we do. If you can think of anything else, mail me. And so what we do is always related to our surrounding, to the outside world. Now, John Donne, my favorite poet from the 16th, 17th century, he said, no man is an island, meaning we are not humans in ourselves. We are humans in relation to other living beings. And psychology, au contraire to body harm, your leg can be broken in a room full of people or when you're alone. But your emotion is a reaction to what you believe is happening around you and in you. So putting a person in a room with a lot of people or few people can shift their emotion. And so the clean questions, the 12 set in the basic, which is taught in the courses, which you can add hundreds of questions to that as long as you follow the principles of clean communication. The cognition question is, what kind of apple is that apple? What kind of X is that X? Which means the cognition part is asking the mammal brain, what experiences do we have of this? How does this relate to our lived experience? And then we ask, where is that X? And when it is there, where there is it? That's physiology and nervous system association. And then we have emotion, the base of the pyramid, and uncomfortable or anxiety or apple is like what, which could elicit a metaphor. And then behavior, what would anxiety, apple, uncomfortable like to have happen next? So that gives you a clear idea, I hope, about, more or less what the intent is, because there's a specific intent. Now, before we say anything else, I just want to add, I said the questions have meaning. You can't, in the same way that you cannot almost surf or be a little bit pregnant, you don't do a little bit of clean in your coaching or therapy, because then it's not clean communication. Then it's clean ideas interspersed in what you do. If you want to do clean, it's a trance state, it's flow, it's nothing else, and you follow the rules, and you will get results in as little as 10 minutes with people who have been stuck for 20 years, I promise you, or those 20 years back.
Okay. I appreciate that promise.
Will you buy it? Will you buy it, Doug?
It's free. Absolutely. For sure. So you'll let us know where to get that information that's free on whatever. But wow. So for the people that weren't seeing that video, seeing that little presentation, so the triangle is there, but then what would you like? What would the feeling like to have happen next? Is an arrow away from that. So it's the next thing on. So the
next thing that would happen. Yeah.
Right. So it's moving on. So it's not part of the triangle. It's if you have that, then what does that want to have happen next?
Yeah. And that is in relation to sect. Yeah. Your situation, your environment, your company, and the time. Those are the 4 layers in the outside world that you relate to at all times. Now, that's our way of making a catalog of that, putting labels on it, because we find that if you work with those 4 dimensions, then you can coach somebody from a bad state to a great state, circle of excellence, defined by this map, compared to circle of fear. And you can just shift the environment in a hypnotic state, and people will go, and find out what is it they're missing. Because anxiety, and I'd love to hear you pick this apart or contradict me. Anxiety is worry, worry is fear. Fear is lack of one of 4 things. Either information. I'm going to be taming a lion tomorrow. I never did that. I don't know how to do it. So somebody says, all you have to do is bring a chair and a whip. Okay, that's cool, but I don't have a chair. That's a resource, right? Oh, I got the chair and the information, but I'm not sure I'm lifting it in the right angle. All right. So you need to practice the skill of lion taming chairlifting. Beautiful. Now I know how to do it. And I practiced it. And my trainer and mentor says, I'm really good at this. It's going to be fine. I'm going into the lion's cage right now. Oh, I got a text message from my mom saying that my car is on fire. Oh, I forgot everything about how to lift this chair now. So that's called your state. You need to be in the state where you can access your skill, your resource, and your information. And those are the 4 things. If you find that, the emotion, which is the message saying you are lacking information, resource, skill, or state, will go away. And voila, you have coached and therapized and terrorized and mindseted and mentored that person into bliss.
So, and is this a permanent change?
Of course it is. If you know how to handle lions, why would you start being anxious about handling lions again? That doesn't make sense.
Maybe your car's on fire. I've seen this before when people who are, and their state changes for one reason or another. I mean, it's happened to me with sleight of mouth. I've been doing sleight of mouth for 30 years. But if somebody like, really manages to change my state because they make me angry or whatever, suddenly I forget everything I knew and I revert back to 6 years old. And it's like, no, I didn't, you did, or whatever, it's unsettling.
And so the deal is,
I've made all speechless.
No,
oh my God.
No, not speech. I'm just looking for the right words to give you, right? Okay, so here's the deal. If you had anxiety because you lacked information, that will never go back once you have the information. You don't learn how to unbicycle or unread or unwalk, right? Unless you get Alzheimer, which is possible.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have the information but not the resource, you can be anxious, but not for the reason that you don't know what to do, for the reason you don't have the chair. Okay. Of course, you can become anxious that you've lost the skill because it was a long time since you lifted a chair to tame a lion. But if you try it, you'll know you have it. So now the state is left. And if you lose the state because you are fearful, then you've lost all this. Can you get into the state again using NLP or tapping or circle of excellence or anything like that? Of course you can. Can you still go out of it? Of course you can. So all of these, of course, are interrelated and each of them will be possible to repeat. But the ones you learn, you keep learned. And the fears that you've depotentiated with arousal lowering techniques stay depotentiated. Doesn't mean you can't find a new state. Maybe you buy a new car and somebody steals it.
Yeah. Or runs out of gas. So
exactly.
Yeah. So when you say that this, you've changed it and it's permanent, what I often look for as a coach, what my sort of hidden agenda is for myself as a coach, is to make the client not need me. That I help them get to a place where it's like they've integrated the learnings, they've made the changes they need to make. They're just doing the new stuff in a productive way, and they just have forgotten the old stuff in the old productive way, and they've become a different person basically. And whether that's in 10 sessions or a year or whatever, but that's the goal, to get them to the place where they literally don't need me. They might like to have a cup of tea sometime, but they don't need me as a coach to help them do those things. They just start doing those things.
I agree. I concur 100%.
So is that what clean language affords? Does it create that? Or clean?
Does a kitchen knife, can it murder, slice bread, butter, put butter on a sandwich? I mean, clean communication will do what you apply it for doing. And if you apply clean communication for them to realize something and to become a new person, they will stay a new person. I also explain everything I explain now. I explain to every client about the 3 brains. I want them to understand it because, like you're saying, they have to learn how to fish, not get a fish from me.
Right.
And I have a little, pet peeve with a lot of coaches that people come and say, "Oh, this person is amazing. This person is fantastic." And I always tell them, for me, the sign of a good coach or therapist is when somebody says, "I went and saw this coach and I feel fantastic," not they're fantastic.
Right. I agree. I absolutely agree. Beautiful. So, do you use clean language then with all of your clients? Or this is something you do, like it is an essential coaching skill? I mean, this is something that you do always.
The essential coaching skill, because I work non-verbally with people whose language I do not speak. The essential coaching skill is clean communication. And that is a list. So it's about your mindset. So everything you have to do is you need to create a safe space for people, right? So it's all about safe space. And everything is now. And you're holding up mirrors for them. And you're assuming nothing. And you're asking for no details. And it's about them, not you. And you're focusing on the future, what they want. So whether you're miming or speaking or whatever you're doing, follow these rules and you are in a clean mindset, whether you use those actual questions or not, right?
Yes. So that's beautiful. I love that. So that's the sort of thing that you bring with you wherever you go, whether it's in the Congo or Rwanda or the refugees camps or whatever, where you don't have the language. But you bring
and there's another step to it. I mean, if you want to go to the trauma-informed mindset, the complete toolbox, then first of all, the rule of clean language and communication is both your verbals and your nonverbals are clean. You're not adding anything, which means if they say, I feel like Karunga, and you don't have to understand what Karunga means. You just say Karunga with the same energy and whatever. That's NLP report, yes, but it's more. It's reflecting back what they said so they can hear it. And if they said Karunga and shrugged their shoulders, then you say Karunga and shrug your shoulders, because their nonverbals are equally valid. In the same way, you don't nod appreciatively or shake your head with empathy, because empathy comes from you, and that is something that is supposed to be invisible in a clean session. You calibrate all the time. If you don't calibrate, you're driving the client in a car without a windshield. That's stupid. So anything you do, of course, has to be done looking at the client to check every single verbal and nonverbal signal if they are going into an emotional state, changing breathing, shifting of skin color, perspiration, nostrils flaring, becoming silent, shift in physiology, all of that stuff. We know that. When you do the intake, if you're trauma-informed and clean, you actually do havening as you do the intake, because the intake is about what pains them. And that's a place where they can go off into an unnecessary flooding. You know how to distract. That's also clean, because you want to direct their working memory to a place away from the old grooves and tracks where they have wired their neurons for decades or years or since they were children. So you want to pull them out of that into a space where they can think without being reactive. And when it comes to affirmations, don't even get me started. Don't tell a torture survivor that has spent 8 months escaping a war, walking by foot, paying smugglers. If you're a woman, it's not if you were raped 3 to 5 times. It's the average. Don't make them sit and say, as they tap themselves, if they do know your language, and despite all this having happened to me, I love and accept myself. That's not going to work. So affirmations have to be clean too, which means they're process and not outcome. I'd like to like myself just a little bit more every day. That's a clean affirmation. The questions would be the set of clean language questions, or anything that fits the principles they adhere to. And then when you evaluate the outcome, that's when a lot of coaches kind of ruin everything they did. You're going, oh, I'm so anxious. Oh, and when you're anxious, blah, 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 intervention, whatever, you get out. And when you are finished with the session, some people say, that was a 10 when we started. Where is it now? And you're bringing them directly back to where they were when you started, and losing all the qualitative information. So clean evaluation of outcome would be, what do you notice that's different? All that is lost if you go for the SUD. And if you go for the SUD, also if it shifted from 9 to 8, some people go, oh, we have to continue, which is extremely trauma uninformed. For some people, one step from 9 to 8 could be hope for life. And so you always ask, is that good or bad? And so that's the evaluation. And it's the same thing with a follow-up. You don't start the follow-up saying, okay, so last time you were here, your anxiety was at 8. Where is it now? Because their life is not a Petri dish. They've been through a zillion things, and they might be coming to you and you say, what do you notice that is different now since last time? And all of a sudden you can get a qualitative, clean place to start from.
Nice. Is that a clean question then? What do you notice now that's different from last time, or what do you notice now that's different from when we started?
I don't know if it's in the David Grove list of questions, right, but it's definitely following all the principles I have understood so far.
Beautiful. Good answer. You said that during the intake that you do havening during the intake.
Absolutely. I would. Yeah. Anything else for me would be like putting somebody in a car, not having them put on the safety belt, and then starting to drive.
Interesting. Because for my model, when I do the intake, I'm trying to get the clean experience of where they are now, without my changing it at all. And havening, down regulates the system, so I don't do havening at all during the intake process. I really want to get where they are now, and the SUDS, this subjective unit of distress, could easily go to a 10 at that point. And in my model, that's great, because that's where we want to start from. That's where we want to, get all those AMPA receptors fully potentiated, so that we can,
In my model and Ganila's model, that is unsafe and untrauma informed, because we work with people whose 10 is basically fainting.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't work. So I'll show you how I do it. I mean, if you join me, and anybody who watches this can join too.
Yeah.
Can you put your hands together?
I can. Let me just get the right camera.
I know you can. I've seen you put them on keys of the piano. Doug is a brilliant piano player. Whatever he says, au contraire to that, is a lie.
Thank you, Ulf.
You're welcome. It's very rare to call somebody a potential liar and get a thank you for that.
Just so you know, Ulf is a recording artist. He's a great piano player. So for him to give me a compliment like that, it's like,
tack. It's mutual respect, equal. So here we go. Somebody comes to me, I want compliance. If you go to Mike Mandel and his hypnotic academy, I don't remember what he's called it, but he's a great teacher and hypnotist. I really like what he does. I'm inspired a lot of some of his teachings, and one of the things is compliance. For hypnosis to work, you need compliance. And for social interaction to work, you need social interaction. So I'm fulfilling this by saying, before we start talking, can we just put your hands together like this and let me explain some things to you? And if they do it and I do it, we're gaining social compliance, and we're starting to have the compliance of hypnosis. And here's the other thing: whether it's Zoom or live, whether it's 100 people or one, I will see if they hit anything over a 5 or 6 on their SUD, because they will stop. And so now I don't have to look for eye movements or nostrils or changes in skin tone. Now I have a metronome telling me if they're okay. And now I tell them, Doug, are your hands hot or cold?
No.
They're not hot or cold?
No.
What are they then?
They're warm.
Okay, they're warm. And if they're warm, are they dry or humid?
I don't think they're dry. They're just kind of normal.
Okay, kind of normal. And you see, your answer is irrelevant. I'm doing this as I do it with clients. Your answer is irrelevant. I just wanted to see if you have, sensory acuity and can interpret the signals of your hands. So now your interoception and sensomotoric system are activated. And on the line between your brain halves and your two hands are all your emotions. So now, if there is an emotion, we can actually hear it. And I know you'll be hearing it because you felt your hands. Now, imagine that you're rolling a glass pearl between your hands. And that's just a metaphor to say you don't want to crush it, you don't want to drop it. So you want friction. Yeah, a glass pearl.
Okay.
Or a meatball if you like meatballs. Anything round.
Okay. Made out of glass.
Yeah, if you want.
Or like
anything you want. Anything you want.
Sorry.
Whatever works for you.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. And now, I just want you to know that so far, the last 15 years of my experience and a lot of studies and a lot of applied neuroscience indicates that it's probably humanly impossible for you to have a panic attack as long as you're doing this. Because if you have a panic attack, your hands will have to stop because the brain will have to take over everything, including the hands. So regard this as an emotional safety belt. And before we go into why you're here today and why you'd like to speak to me about whatever that is you'd like to change, I just want to know, do you have any place that you've experienced, any situation, memory, person, or fantasy that would make you safe if you thought about it?
Would make me safe.
Yeah, make you feel safe. I mean, if you think about sitting in your couch, would you feel safe sitting in your couch in that memory?
Sure.
You have that?
Yeah.
So now what I'm doing now is I'm activating your mammal brain to find out if you have experiences that can be safe. Some people don't because they can't access them because they haven't recorded them. They've been in hypervigilance 8 months running it through the desert.
Sure. And
so if it's okay for you to close your eyes, then close your eyes now and think about that, whatever that is, and I don't have to know, and think about it and add whatever details you need and see if you can find a smile of feeling Dougie. There you go. And you can't fake, that kind of reaction. So now I know that you did go there and you are in a place, because smile is the easiest thing. It's so many micro muscles. So when you have the Dougie smile, is it okay if I call it the Dougie smile, or do you want to give it another name?
No,
That's good Dougie.
Don't do it outside of this. don't do it outside of this, but really, go ahead.
And now we've gone into social engagement of the polyvagal theory of social interaction, of reciprocity in smiles and joking and laughter. And Viktor Frankl said in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that humor is the highest healer. So if we can laugh together, we're in a good, safe space, and we have the actual what's it called, the confidence to move forward. We have the safe space, and now I can go back and I can just say, come on, Dougie, come back with that smile, and we can jump back upon the island out of the water of sharks where we want to learn how to swim now. And from here, I would say, what is it you'd like to change? And I don't need your story. I don't need everything you believe has contributed to this. I just want to know, is there a situation in your life that's not playing out the way you like it right now due to something you believe or feel or react or find yourself not doing? And then we'll go from there. And there I will go into the clean questions. And maybe I'll just go out of them and do provocative therapy instead, which is unclean, because I don't know.
Right. So, okay, good. So you don't have to always necessarily do clean language. You jump into other things as well as seems to be relevant and appropriate for the client.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, it's about the client. It's not about me.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if I think my new technique or tool is so cool and it's the only one I have. If the client doesn't need that, I need to shift.
Yeah. Well, what I particularly love about the way that you work, Ulf, is that you have so many different options. So like for me, when I do sleight of mouth or when I do Ericksonian hypnosis, or what I like to call neo-Ericksonian hypnosis, there's so much about it that's language based.
Mm-hmm.
The person has their eyes closed. I'm telling them a story. It's language based. You work with people that you don't have the language, and that they're not worried about what will they be able to afford their groceries or tomorrow. They've been in a literally life and death situation where a lot of it was death for a long time, and they're still in that scenario. They're still there. They're still in the refugee camp. They haven't escaped yet. Part of the EMLI, the event, meaning, landscape, and inescapability, that the four components of necessary to encode a trauma that Ron Rudin enumerated. The inescapability thing is not, they're still there. They're still in the refugee camp. They haven't escaped it yet. You still are able to help those folks. You're still able to, without language, to do havening or tapping as is warranted, to really help people get a sense of safety and possibility. I mean, it's extraordinary work that you do.
And it is built on safety, trust, clean communication, and coming from the right place. So, Gunilla and I, if you ask us what is the absolute first step of offering any kind of help or intervention to people who just stepped off a small raft full of 80 people, built for 10, kids with hypothermia in the middle, then women and children, men on the outside to protect against pirates who will come up with a razor blade and say, we know you have all your belongings, hand them over or you'll sink. These people arrive to the shore in Lesbos in Greece, and volunteers in their 20s with absolutely no training will run in because they have to save the babies, snatch them from the mother's arms and bring them to the UNESCO Doctors Without Borders or something, where the mother is now, her child is now kidnapped, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's absurd situation, shouldn't happen anywhere in the modern world. And it's happening every day because we are not a modern world. We were more civilized 10,000 years ago. And there's plenty of proof for that. So what we have is TAS. That's the instep of helping anybody. And all these methods have 3 abbreviations, right? TAT, TRE, TTT, EFT, whatever. And TAS is a cup of tea and a smile.
TAS stands for?
Tea and a smile.
Oh, tea and smile. Got it.
Yeah. Something that says, welcome, I'm not dangerous, you're not dangerous. And if the smile can trigger their social engagement circuitry, if they respond to the smile, they have now switched into, I believe I'm safe, at least for this moment, part of the brain, rather than where the heck is my baby? And so a smile followed by a cup of tea, which is also kinesthetic, gustatory, It's taste, it's safety, it's sense, and it's on the inside and outside. And there you have the first instep of anything.
Nice.
And then when they come in and there's a line of 200 people, they're screaming, they're shouting, there's police, there's sirens. There are people in the next room where the doctors are, who are bleeding and having convulsions and whatever. They're trying to help in the way they can within the limits of what they're allowed to do here. And the only psychological support we are allowed to give is basically tapping and havening. And that's what we offer. And sometimes we also do hand massage, just with oil, massaging the hands works wonderful. We haven't called it anything yet. And so you have an interpreter, but the interpreters are scarce and they have to run between you and if somebody is bleeding for some reason on the other side. So you only have like 5-10 seconds with the interpreter to say, hi, how are you feeling? To get something, to know that you've built a trust and they've activated the synapses that never have to go to 10. If they only open the door, that's enough. And then you just ask them permission to show them self-regulation. That's all the interpreter does. Is it okay if I show you something that has worked for a lot of people? And they say, I want medication. I want medication. I want medication. And you say, we're not allowed to. This is all I have. Either you move over and give the next person the opportunity to try this, or you try this. That's all. And reluctantly or happily, some of them will say yes immediately and some will wait a second. Now, if it's a woman that you're not allowed to touch for cultural reasons, then you ask the husband or the child to do it, or her sister or friend, whoever's there. If it is a child and you don't want to get through the whole procedure, who's this weird person speaking a weird language who wants to touch me, then you instruct the mother, the father, or whatever. Now, the beauty of tapping and havening is that although there are many techniques that could work for a person, you cannot do it for them. Eye movement therapy requires them to do it. Breathing requires them to do it. Any therapeutic approach requires them to do it. Yoga requires them. Exercise requires them. Mindfulness requires them. But tapping and havening, you can do it for somebody. And it's biological. They don't have to believe it. It works on horses and dogs, so it should work on humans.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do it, and it lowers arousal. And the main difference for us between tapping and havening is, besides the fact that for some people, tapping is too intense and havening might be better. For some people, havening is too intimate and tapping might work better. But when it comes to anxiety attacks, havening, applied shoulder havening with permission from somebody they know or a stranger, so far, 100% of the people have been able to let go.
Wow.
And that's incredible. And the doctors are, they're astounded because the only thing they can do in that case is to give diazepam as an injection. And all that will do is knock out the messenger until they wake up in their cold and muddy tent in a pool of water and start panicking again.
Yeah. And just for the people who don't know what havening is, stroking the arms like this. And now I am doing it to myself, right? So you can do havening.
Yes, I can see him.
Yes. You can, a person can apply this to themselves, and it's good, and it is good. But in the same way that you can't tickle yourself, when somebody else tickles you, it induces a response. In the same way, when someone else does the havening touch, and they are themselves in a calm state to start with, because bodies communicate a great deal, But if somebody who is calm and reassuring puts their hands on you and starts stroking your shoulders like that, it sends a myriad number of messages, and it totally downregulates the system. And it's a beautiful.
Most of all, it allows you to decide, am I accepting help from somebody I don't know? And that's a huge leap of faith. And when you do that and it actually feels good, it gives hope that maybe I have a way out of this. And that's why I keep saying, for those who are trained in EFT and havening and TFT, please be careful with your affirmations. Please be careful with transpirational havening, where you just sit and say words that could trigger people and you're not calibrating. They can go into an abreaction, which is unnecessary. Please start with a safety belt of, gold mining and hand havening before you start talking, if you believe they're traumatized, and you will never be able to tell, because the moment a person feels safe with you, they will open Pandora's box. So a person who came to stop smoking can all of a sudden have an abreaction because you made them feel safe, because you're good at what you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's really true. It's really true. Yeah, one of our colleagues, Harry Pickens, likes to say that havening heals and havening reveals. It opens up that box, and that's really well said. Thank you, Ulf. Hey, I know we're getting up close to the hour. In fact, I think we are very close to the hour. So thank you so much for being here. Obviously, we could talk for more hours, but I think I've pushed you far enough for today. In your generosity, I really, really appreciate that. If
I'm happy to be pushed. I'm a pushover.
If people want to find out more, could you tell us where we can find you and how we can find out more about what you do?
There are 3 websites with loads of free resources. Number 1 is peacefulheart.se. We're home of trauma tapping, but we also do havening, and we also do 18 other techniques where you have testimonials, you have our book for free, you have our app for free, you have just a vast amount of free resources. If you want to do first aid, which the acronym for us, I know you love acronyms. I love your CASE acronym. I thought you came up with that, if I remember right. And so our acronym is FAST, First Aid, Stress, and Trauma.
Okay, First Aid, Stress, and Trauma. That's peacefulheart.se.
Yes, and then the second place for resources.
Peaceful Heart Network.
No, peacefulheart.se. Network was occupied. Okay. And so the second website where you have loads of free resources is Ulf Sandstrom, spelled the way it sounds, .com.
Could you spell it anyway?
.com.
ULF, Ulf Sandstrom. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and the third one, where you have the trainings in these specific clean skills, which is either there's a free one called Am I Clean, where you can just find out about this. It's 2 hours and it's regular. It comes. I don't have a new one posted. I did one last Friday. And if you sign up for it, it doesn't cost you anything, and you get the recording. So even if you sign up, you're not able to be there, you do get the recording. I believe in free stuff, right? And so second one is Clean Communication, the big one. It's 2 times 4 hours in 2 days in a row consecutive. I do different time zones, sometimes catering for the Southern Hemisphere, sometimes for the Northern. And then there's Clean Metaphors, Clean Calibration, and other in-depth deep dives into that. I have Clean Metaphors tomorrow, if anybody's watching this before the 12th of May, 2024, the Lord's year.
It won't be.
It'll
be
okay.
By the time this drops.
So you can all forget that. But they will be there, and they're on my website for havening, which is havening.se, as in Sweden.
Oh, so the one that isn't available tomorrow because it'll be yesterday or so.
Exactly, until time travel comes, and then we can all go there.
But what is that one? Clean
Metaphors.
Clean Metaphors, and that's .com.
No, just no, it's just a training called Clean Metaphors on the havening.se site.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, good. Gotcha. Beautiful. Fantastic. So Ulf Sandstrom, it's been a pleasure. My God, it's always great to see you and always great to hear and learn from you. Thank you so much for being here.
And I'm so thankful. Without you, I actually wouldn't have all this. So thanks to you, coming to Sweden, teaching sleight of mouth to a lot of the NLP colleagues and hypnotists, and discussing hypnosis nights at end. And besides that, being a great person and friend and very good at teaching, you actually pointed us into the arms of Ruden and havening, without which, and I can say this honestly, our trauma tapping works. Having 2 methods, saying trauma tapping and havening, try both and find out which one works for you. It's a Milton Ericksonian double bind, which makes them try 2 methods and choose the one that works. Fantastic.
Very cool.
Thanks for that.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
This has been the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure seeing you again. Hope to see you again real soon. Come back next week when we have another gripping and exciting episode of the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And if you want to, you can find out more about us, each and every one of us, at essentialcoachingskills.com. Thanks.